Brothers and sisters, I've received a lot of emails about how people like my videos, and thank you for that. But these people were also wondering if I could post videos more consistently. Well, this is hard as I do work a lot, and also I try to put a lot of effort into these videos as well. The last one I posted had 309 individual clips and transitions that I pieced together. I do enjoy doing them, and so I thought about how to handle the situation and requests, and try to do something different to give me more time in posting a little more often. I've learned so many things over the years in this field: the esoteric, occult, hermetics, the ancient science, or whatever we choose to call it. I thought about sharing quick videos of this knowledge while I'm working on the more in-depth videos. The short ones, like the one you're about to see, I'm hoping to put together in maybe 2 or 3 hours. So let's see how this goes. Peace. I'm sure you're all aware of a show called Ancient Aliens. And I'm sure you all know that some of the things they mention are kind of borderline fraud or misinformation at the very least. I used to be a fan, and I still am to a certain degree. My problem is this: the Ancient Alien cast and the show are being exposed by a guy named Chris White, who published a 3-hour documentary called Ancient Aliens Debunked, calling everything the show produces lies. For 3 solid hours, Mr. White goes in and does his best to rip the show apart. Now, debunkers are everywhere. That's not my problem. This is my problem. The people who produce this show and shows like it and hold seminars and write books on the subject, they run and hide when questioned about their own work. No, this is unacceptable. If these people can take our money, then they have an obligation to stand up publicly to anyone who calls their work into question. And this is never done. This is the problem with Ancient Aliens and the like. Hey, I want to believe. We want to believe. How can we if these people can defend their own work? Believe it or not, it's not that hard. It's not hard if you care more for the work than the book or ticket sales. And I'm going to give you an example. Ezekiel was one of the topics on Ancient Aliens. There's a passage in the book of Ezekiel in the Bible that the ancient alien theorists, as they're called on the show, and actually others believe and say that in that book, in a certain vision Ezekiel has, he's describing some sort of a celestial ship or UFO. Chris White of Ancient Aliens Debunked says that the UFO theory is false. And that's just for people who don't understand scripture or what's said in the Bible. And that Ezekiel was smart enough to be able to write down what he saw 2,600 years ago with accuracy. and it wasn't any sort of spaceship. Mr. White is a conservative Christian, and that's how I was raised. Hardcore Christianity. So I'm not picking on him. We went to church every Sunday, unless you were sick. I went to Sunday school before the main church service started, and some Sunday nights. Then there was Wednesday night prayer meeting, choir rehearsals, guest speakers, bazaars. When my friends had summer vacation from school, I went to vacation Bible school. Even in school, before everything changed, after we said the Pledge of Allegiance, we then bowed our heads, and the teachers led us in prayer before class started. So I'm not picking on Mr. White. I'm able to look at this from an esoteric side and also from a religious point of view as well. So I can understand what Mr. White's views are, or what he was told the Bible said, or what he thinks it said. I went to so many churches, and some of them talked about the same subject, but a lot of them had different interpretations on what they thought it meant.
Now it came about in the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, while I was in the midst of the exiled people by the river Kibar, that the heavens were opened, and I began to see visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, that is, in the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim, the word of Jehovah occurred specifically to Ezekiel, the son of Buzi, the priest in the land of the Chaldeans, by the river Kibar. And upon him in that place the hand of Jehovah came to be. And I began to see, and look, there was a tempestuous wind coming from the north, a great cloud mass, and quivering fire, and it had a brightness all around, and out of the midst of it there was something like the look of electrum out of the midst of the fire. And out of the midst of it there was the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was how they looked. They had the likeness of earthling man, and each one had 4 faces, and each one of them 4 wings. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of the foot of a calf, and they were gleaming as with the glow of burnished copper. And there were the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and the 4 of them had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joining one to the other. They would not turn when they went. They would go each one straight forward. And as for the likeness of their faces, the 4 of them had a man's face, with a lion's face to the right, and the 4 of them had a bull's face on the left. The 4 of them also had an eagle's face. That is the way their faces were. And their wings were spreading out upward. Each one had 2 joining to each other, and 2 were covering their bodies. And they would go each one straight forward. To wherever the Spirit would incline to go, they would go. They would not turn as they went. And as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire. Something like the appearance of torches was moving back and forth between the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire there was lightning going forth. And on the part of the living creatures there was a going forth and a returning, as with the appearance of the lightning. As I kept seeing the living creatures, why, look, there was one wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, by the 4 faces of each. As for the appearance of the wheels and their structure, it was like the glow of chrysolite, and the 4 of them had one likeness. And their appearance and their structure were just as when a wheel proved to be in the midst of a wheel. When they went, they would go on their 4 respective sides. They would not turn another way when they went. And as for their rims, they had such height that they caused fearfulness. And their rims were full of eyes all around the 4 of them. And when the living creatures went, the wheels would go beside them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels would be lifted up. Wherever the Spirit inclined to go, they would go, the Spirit inclining to go there. And the wheels themselves would be lifted up close alongside them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. When they went, these would go. And when they stood still, these would stand still. And when they were lifted up from the earth, the wheels would be lifted up close alongside them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And over the heads of the living creatures there was the likeness of an expanse, like the sparkle of awesome ice stretched out over their heads up above. And under the expanse their wings were straight, one to the other. Each one had 2 wings covering on this side, and each one had 2 covering on that side, their bodies. And I got to hear the sound of their wings, a sound like that of vast waters, like the sound of the Almighty One. When they went, the sound of a tumult, like the sound of an encampment. When they stood still, they would let their wings down. And there came to be a voice about the expanse that was over their head. When they stood still, they would let their wings down. And above the expanse that was over their head there was something in appearance like sapphire stone, the likeness of a throne. And upon the likeness of the throne there was a likeness of someone in appearance like an earthling man upon it, up above. And I got to see something like the glow of electrum, like the appearance of fire all around inside thereof. From the appearance of his hips and upward, and from the appearance of his hips and downward, I saw something like the appearance of fire, and he had a brightness all around. There was something like the appearance of the bow that occurs in a cloud mass on the day of a pouring rain. That is how the appearance was of the brightness round about. It was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Jehovah.
Man, lion, bull, and eagle. I remembered seeing something similar in the Hermetic books. In this one, the teachings go back to ancient India, a book on astrology, cosmic harmony, and the universe. As I said before, I've learned a lot over the years, but most of the time I need a trigger to remember something. Even though I haven't looked through this book and it's been years, I remembered this. You see, Mr. White can pick on the ancient alien guys because, well, they're just there for a paycheck. Nothing wrong with that. But me, I live the life, so I don't have to cower. If I don't know, I don't know. I seldom speak on it. But if I do, I do. All of this is about interpretation. No one's right, no one's wrong. It's how we see it. And how we choose to live our lives by our beliefs. Chris White of Debunking Ancient Aliens says, what is being described here is God's throne. Because God's throne has wheels on it. Personally, I thought God would be more of a floater, not moving around like Professor Xavier. I don't know. Honestly, I'd rather believe in the spaceships. Truth is, there are so many interpretations of this chapter throughout the entire world in religious systems that it can't and is not as cut and dry as Mr. White suggests. I was reading a magazine from 1945, original, and it was at the end of World War II. And the article was talking about a piece of secret German technology the Allies, the Russians and the Americans, were looking for in Austria. Intelligence led them to an Austrian shoemaker. The Allied officers asked this Austrian shoemaker, "What did you see?" This is what the Austrian shoemaker told them in 1945. What did the Austrian shoemaker see in 1945? Well, at the end of the war, the Russians and the Americans got a hold of this technology, developed it, and a few years later, tested it on both sides. And you can see what the Austrian shoemaker saw.
Polaris missiles arrive at Cape Canaveral for their first test firings from the nuclear submarine expressly designed for the job, USS George Washington. The tests are a stirring climax to a 4-year program to mate the nuclear submarine and the intermediate-range ballistic missile. Now the sub's missile hatches are cleared and ready. They'll house the 28-foot two-stage rockets until the moment when mighty gusts of compressed air will shoot the Polaris from under the sea to the surface and ignition. Every stage of the loading and the cruise to the firing area about 30 miles off Cape Canaveral is under detailed scrutiny of a battery of test instruments. The George Washington goes down some 50 to 60 feet below the surface, and the time for launching is at hand. The first missile, after a startling off-angle emergence, corrects itself and soars downrange 1,100 miles to its target with remarkable accuracy. A few hours later, the second Polaris is fired. Another successful shot, an achievement of major strategic importance for America's defense.
An undersea boat that shot out a fiery comet and a metal fish that jumped out of the water. The German scientists, the designers of the V2 rocket, had designed a way to shoot V2s from U-boats underwater. This is what the Austrian shoemaker saw and tried to describe to the Allies the best of his ability. The shoemaker was a simple man, no doubt, and could only explain what he saw with the only vocabulary he could use. And yet, I'm supposed to believe that Ezekiel, who lived 2,600 years ago and was still sacrificing animals to appease an angry God, could have accurately described it if he had indeed saw some sort of spacecraft and described it without using any metaphors. Let's move on. After the 2004 tsunami, search and rescue went to check on a Stone Age tribe of people called the Sentinelese. These people are so primitive that there is no record of them being able to understand agriculture or even how to make fire. They have been isolated thousands upon thousands of years from so-called civilized nations. While they have seen ships and have had contact with very few outsiders, because in nearly all of the cases, the outsiders were faced with hostility and in some cases put to death. These people were thrust upon the world stage after the 2004 tsunami, after a Coast Guard chopper went to check on the inhabitants of the island, and a photo was captured of the tribesmen aiming bow and arrows at the rescue chopper. No agriculture, no fire, thousands of years of isolation. I was wondering what the tribesmen told their people the first time they saw a helicopter. I meant, what description was given on what these people saw?
I like doing the free falls. The free falls are fun. You get nice and low to the water. And you got the crazy man in the back that likes to jump out.
Alright, good luck to John.
Yeah. Sometimes if we get low enough, he'll jump in the water and his splash will actually come up and back into the helicopter.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So anytime I put John in the door without any kind of harness on or anything, I got to be below 30 feet.
Okay, yeah, you wouldn't want to...
Yeah. Just for, just in case we took a roll or something.
First part 2 complete, ready for free fall deployment of the rescue swimmer.
Going hot mic check swimmer.
Put on hot mic check swimmer.
And in the end, we don't know what those tribesmen told their people they saw in the sky some 13 years ago, or the first time they saw any aircraft for that matter. We weren't there. Just like in the book of Ezekiel, he uses metaphors to describe what he saw. That's why in different religions, everyone has their opinion of what they think he saw. But for the Austrian shoemaker in 1945, he gives a description of what he saw. And in the end, we actually found what he saw. And also, brothers and sisters, I do have a Patreon account now, and I look at it like this. I love what I'm doing, I'm honest, and I can produce. Why should the frauds make money and produce nothing? Simple. Thank you, and thanks for your support, and peace.